up, Ruben? Welcome to the show, my man. It's good to hang with you.
Thanks for having me over.
Yeah, uh, I am in I'm in Miami, and it's nuts what's going on here. And what city are you calling in from?
I'm based in San Francisco, and I've been in San Francisco throughout the whole pandemic. I've been there for actually almost 12 years now.
I'm so glad you said that. I am part of the San Francisco to Miami exodus. I did
Huh.
the exodus in September. Oh my gosh. Um, you think Gavin's going to get the recall? You think he's staying? You think he's going? What do you think?
Now, recall is not going to happen, but he might be, I think, in trouble for re-election in terms of like getting primaried.
I think it's one of those where um, coming in from San Francisco to Miami, it's hard to say who's right, who's wrong, but it's completely different what's going on here. When I got here, I didn't think anyone knew the word mask. I mean, unnerving to say the least. I mean, literally unnerving.
I
Um,
bet.
and it's it is crazy. And how many friends do you have that stayed in San Francisco versus did the Exodus? And did you ever think about going somewhere?
Actually, not a lot of close friends, or at least close friends, moved out. Like I have a few friends who moved out of the city and into the peninsula or like the East Bay, but I don't personally, well, it's not true. I know a few people who moved out, but they moved out of the US. I'm French, and a lot of French people actually at the end of the summer, during the summer, decided to move back to France because at that time it really looked like it was a little bit of a mess, like in the US, whereas Europe was reopening, the cafes, bars, restaurants were open, so it seemed much better. Then, of course, the situation has completely inverted now, where we are getting the vaccine. It's close to people see the end of the tunnel here in the US. It's like within weeks, whereas in Europe they just don't have enough doses to go through it, and it's still very the epidemic is very prevalent there. But as far as like American friends, I actually don't know too many people who moved out. And it's funny because like I actually read a study somewhere based on USPS data that most of the exodus out of San Francisco was actually towards other counties in California. We talk a lot about Austin, Texas, Miami,
Yeah.
but actually that's only a small fraction.
Now, I also read today, so I read it today, but you might have read it before me. Salesforce has given up a big lease, right? 325,000 square feet of one of their towers. I mean, you come out of that, what is that? Is that Embarcadero, BART stop? I mean, that is just all the buildings of Salesforce.
Yeah. I
Interesting.
mean, I mean, it's there's no question that like the future of work has been changed, and the idea that you should be tethered to an office and be expected to show up at work every day in a tech environment, I think that's pretty much a thing of the past. Companies are starting to realizing it slowly, but I'm at Lime, and like I think we've realized that pretty early on, that the idea that we should nowadays require everyone to be based in the Bay Area so that when the pandemic is over, everyone can go back to the office is not the case. Like we've started hiring remote over the last 6 months, and I think there's very much this idea that like the future of work is going to be
Yep.
hybrid between being in the office and remote, but we will allow people to work remotely.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I feel that I've done a lot, working at this pace. I've been able to do a lot more critical thinking, reflective thinking, strategic thinking in an environment where I'm not distracted, knocking on your door. Can I come in for a second? Like, how have going into some of like the strategic stuff that you're working on? Have you felt like you've had a little bit more quiet time to do some critical thinking?
I think it's a little bit of both. So in my case, there I spend a lot of times in meetings, not because I love meetings, no one does, but because it's kind of required of my job as a manager of like data science and analytics. I have to kind of like participate in like whether it's like planning or review meetings, or conversations with like cross-functional stakeholders to check in on to discuss a new issue or checking on the status of an existing issue. So it's not like I have a ton of time to do like private reflection, but it is true that like having sort of like more quiet time to myself has allowed me to perhaps dedicate more of my time to like strategic planning and other things of that sort.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what I've been enjoying about this is I always like to guard my calendar. So I've been really able to book meetings around those peak performance hours, block out time for one-on-ones during quieter times for me. So I think I've been able to be present a lot more. So that's been enjoyable. Um, but yeah, it's been tough. I mean, really trying to find and your way hasn't been easy, right? And you know, we're comfortable with the tooling, the Zoom and the technology, but yeah, you know, humans need to interact.
Yeah,
So,
agree.
and now when when you look back on last year or the 13 months, are you ahead of your projects? Are you behind? Are there new things that you are now prioritizing? Like what's going on with the team and like some of the deliverables? And how have you been able to manage all this with, you know, the pandemic?
Um, I think it's a difficult question to answer in the sense that a lot of our projects are very contingent to the priorities of the business and what's happening at any time, at any point in time. If if a project is not kind of highly urgent and important 3 months later, then there's no reason to keep working at it. And oftentimes our projects also, a lot of them like have shorter time deliveries. It's not like we go for like 6 months in a room and come back 6 months later with something. It's usually each project is either like more short term, meaning it can take like 1 or 2 weeks, or even if it's a longer term project that could overall take 2 to 3 months, it's broken down into smaller chunks.
Mhm.
So it's hard to say exactly that like we are behind or on some projects. What I would say though is that the pandemic has forced us to reevaluate how we serve the needs of the company, and in many cases we've decided to invest more in internal projects that build systems and tools to serve the needs of the entire organization. For example, fully automated experiment pipeline analysis, a simulation engine, maybe a series of like new metrics and dashboard that can answer a lot of questions, and new user classification. And so we spent a lot more time doing these, which I think has been an interesting change of pace from prior to the start of COVID. At the same time, I want to acknowledge that it's been difficult going through this period because I think there's a bit more like a sense of isolation. A lot of the people on the team are younger and they are used to the beehive activity in the office and like meeting their friends for lunch. For a lot of them, it's like they came to San Francisco for work, and that's how they discovered their social life. And being cut off from that social life is a bit more difficult. So we try to have like a bit more internal meetings for the team. We try to have like social events over Zoom, but it cannot totally replace human interaction.
Now, are you seeing anything on your side that you can disclose about cities coming back with some of your technology and your product? Are you seeing people starting to get back out there, or is it still you're just in a tough sector?
No, I mean, I think this is not a secret at all that even after like the first series of lockdown eased up, both in North America and Europe, we saw a resurgence of activity.
Right.
People were eager to get out and use our services. And now what's even more interesting is that we are seeing in certain countries where the vaccination rate is much higher. We're talking like 30, 40, 50%. We are seeing also a return to normalcy that is correlated to the vaccination.
Oh, I love hearing that. I absolutely love hearing that. Now, to our audience that might not be familiar with the product, do you want to talk a little bit about the product and then what your team does to help, move the needle on the product?
Sure. I mean, so Lime is a micromobility company. We're in fact like the number one micromobility company in the world. We operate electric scooters, electric bikes, and as of earlier this week, mopeds in dozens of cities across the world, dozens of countries. Basically, the goal is to allow people in urban environments to have access to open air, single passenger modes of transportation that are both fun and carbon friendly. Those are all like electric vehicles, and also help decongest some of the big traffic areas in cities. So that's kind of the idea behind Lime. My team is responsible for the data analysis that would be required from the product team, from the operations team, from hardware team. We also work with finance and other teams, and kind of like at a high level, you can think of it as like one of three activities. Either we provide measures or like self-serve insights. So, it can be like instrumenting a simple metric. It can be instrumenting like a whole A/B test and letting people like read the result of that A/B test on their own. We also do double click and deep dives. Sometimes it's required to a little deeper into your problem to try and understand exactly what happened and why. Why did certain customers opted into this subscription versus that subscription? Who were they? What does that mean in terms of the maybe product strategy for the company? And finally, we also work on developing algorithms that help automate and optimize operational decisions. So if you think of decisions such as where to deploy scooters in the morning, which one to retrieve, or perhaps even which segment of customer to message with this or that promotion, you can either do that manually with like some business intelligence that tell you like, well, this is a better location to deploy to, a better user segment to promote to, or you can automate all of that with algorithms that automatically tell you this is where demand will be and we should deploy, or this is which segment of user is about to churn, or which is like a very juicy and automatically send them recommendations or promotions.
I gotta tell you, I love it. There's so much there. I like how fast that data moves. I like that it's about transportation. I love that it's about point A to B and recurring. There is a lot there. Were you there early enough to do a lot of the architecture and building, or are you there for just the scaling of the team? And what do you like to do? Do you like to build teams, scale teams? Like, tell us about you.
Sure. I mean, I joined in 2019. The architecture was for the most part there, like especially like the data stack was there. And it was more about how do we then use this like raw data, raw capabilities to build something useful for Lime. So I would say that I was much more part of scaling up the analytics practice and the data team as a whole. Started with like 6 analysts that were kind of initially scattered in different teams across the organization. And we built together like a single centralized analytics team, grew it to 14, then like integrated with a data science team. So it was really about consolidating the function and scaling it up.
I like that. I mean, for me, those are the two things. I liked playing early or that just right before that growth. Because then once the company's too big, it's just a lot of maintenance and some innovation. So you're right at the place that I enjoy.
I agree.
The rest, you're like, we're so big, we move slow. Like those places, I buy their products, but I don't know if I'd work in those teams.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah, no,
like excitement.
No, without a doubt. And I think for us, we are a community. And what I always try to ask our guests, because I like to introduce you to other community members, which is why we like to have these podcasts and conversations. I'd like to make some intros. Are you looking to meet people in the same sector or have different passions? Like if I can connect you with like a handful of people, who would you want to meet?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always open to kind of understanding what other innovative companies are doing in the space of data analytics or data science.
Okay.
So I think that's always interesting to meet other data leaders and see how they've solved some of the problems that we faced.
Hypergrowth startup, legacy industry, or you're pretty open just to meeting people?
I think in general, I find maybe more common grounds with people who've also been in like similar tech startups.
Yeah.
Not necessarily all like in that hyper growth stage. Could be like more established companies. Like I think we have a lot of things to learn from the data science practices at Airbnb or Uber. But like there's a lot of like knowledge that's being generated at all those companies.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there is something special to the Valley playbook. So I think, there is something that is in the water in the valley. I do believe that, but you're right. I think a good mix of like, marquee valley companies we know, plus a little bit of the adult brands that have been around for 50 to 90 years. So
Right.
I'm with you on that. And again, the reason why I try to do this is, um, it's still self-isolation, it's still loneliness. It's like, can we still break up the day? I think that's important because, it's tough out there. Every day it's getting better with the COVID vaccines, but it's like you said, we're ahead of some countries, and like you have friends in different countries. No one's traveling yet. So
Yeah.
when do you think you'd feel comfortable getting on a plane?
I think I need my first dose, and then I'll be on a plane.
Mm.
But I mean, from what I can see, it's a matter of weeks, right? Like there are like already certain states, I think it was Alaska and some other state, have already lifted restrictions in terms of like who get access to the vaccine. I bet in California it's a matter of weeks before people like me. So I'm on the younger side of things. I don't have pre-existing conditions. So right now they are letting people with pre-existing conditions register for vaccinations after first responders and educators that were already eligible. But I think people like me would be eligible in the next few weeks. So I think it's a matter of weeks before I get on a plane.
Yeah, I heard that Black Hat is considering doing like an in-person event. I don't know.
Hmm.
So
that might be like the next level. But
so like they're literally saying, like, I think in sometime in April they're going to decide. So I don't know, because like for me with the vaccine, I don't know if I'm going to I don't know if I'm going to Black Hat. Like I think I'd travel maybe to see family, or
exactly.
I'm not ready yet to be at a stadium or a, Moscone is Chicago. Is it was the Moscone Center in Chicago, or like the convention center in Vegas? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't think 100% of the people are going to be vaccinated. Some people will choose not to. And that's
Well,
fine.
it's gonna,
Their
yeah, it's
choice.
gonna be also like it's gonna be around for like the much longer than people anticipate. That there's gonna be some like low level base rate COVID around for the next few years,
That's good.
but most of the activity will return to normal.
I, but what won't return is, like you said, you can't forget this year plus working from home and getting that work done differently. Like you said,
Mm.
you as humans, I think so many of us don't want to go back. And when I see what like Elon Musk, what I see like Jack Dorsey with Twitter go remote, and Salesforce now, I mean, that's a big one. Benioff loves San Francisco. I mean, he was one of the few people that's like, we're not paying for lunches. Support the town. We
Yeah.
don't pay for lunch. You need to support the town. It is, for him to make that move and say, we'll have kind of different ways to work. I'm sure that wasn't an easy decision, because he really likes to see San Francisco thrive. Not like other people don't, but yeah,
Mhm.
he puts his money where his mouth is. So
Agree.
yeah, I don't know. And they're crushing it also. So it's interesting. Like they're not slowing down as well. Were you on Teams or were you on Slack? Because I know this, like
Back.
you're on Slack. Yeah, I thought that was also a good purchase. When you think about Teams and Slack, it just shows you how fast companies are innovating during the pandemic. Like Slack had, I think it was the best exit they can do. Microsoft is throwing everything at Teams, everything, and I just, I think, I think the pandemic pushed Teams into a different level. I don't know your thoughts on that, but
Yeah, I actually I've never used Teams, so I really can't comment on it. But I mean, it's obvious that like it's attached to the larger Microsoft ecosystem, and a lot of tech companies are more bought into the Google Doc ecosystem, which then often like make them go Slack rather than Teams. But for me, it's a tool, right? It's a tool to get your work done. It helps you stay a little bit in touch with your team and lower the barrier for communication. So in that sense, it's good.
yeah. Do you keep your Slack chimes on or do you mute them? How's that question? Where do you?
Oh, I certainly mute. So there's no notification. I mean, there's a visual notification on my screen when someone send me like a direct message, but I certainly do not get like the chimes. I hate that. And
Yeah.
if I also I also disable like any notification
Yes.
where it's not directly to
Yes.
me.
Yes. Yes. Ruben, I'm the same. Ruben, because the chimes, someone called me, oh, why don't you respond on Slack? I'm like, if it's an urgent project, I'm all over it. I go, but
Yeah.
this stuff takes me out of my, I'm in a place of like maybe creative writing, strategic thinking or something. These chimes you lift up and you got to shut them off. So I agree. That is so
Mm.
funny. So you were the same. Well, Ruben, I appreciate you spending time with me. It's a little bit late here, so I appreciate you spending your end of your day as I end my day. So this was a treat. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and there are a few people I'm going to connect you with. We connect everyone via LinkedIn, and one of them will be our sponsor, Pandio. They're doing some cool stuff with distributed messaging, so I'll introduce you to them. But there's other startups and there's other mature companies. But either way, I think it'd be just good to again build out that network of people that are working on interesting things, if that's okay.
Sure. Sounds good.
All right, Ruben, thank you again, and we'll have you back soon.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Happy to.
Here.
Bye.